Hey guys, Dr. Ben here, Functional Medicine Center. Welcome, and so excited today to go over some interesting information that came out this weekend. Anybody that's on Facebook, anybody that's looking out there, you probably saw this. You probably saw a post on this. You probably saw a news article on this. Want to go over that 94%, 6%, and what does that really mean? So welcome, Dr. Ben Galliard here, run the Functional Medicine Centers. We have an office in Fort Collins, Colorado, and also one in Phoenix, Arizona. So we work with all types of different health conditions, chronic conditions of every age out there we work with. So anyways, let's jump into it. So the CDC reported that 94% of the people that have died with COVID have actually, and I've said that for all along, have died with COVID, meaning it was not the sole thing that they died from, that they put on their death certificate, that it was actually the average was 2.6 other comorbidities. Hey, Randy out in Scotts Bluff there, Heather, good to see you guys. If you're watching, go ahead and put down where you're watching in from. Love to see where everybody's watching from. And if you've got any questions or comments, go ahead and put those down below as well. So again, 94% of the people that the CDC has looked at their death certificates, and this was as of August 26th, and there was 167,000 people that have died with COVID. And so this is different than the Johns Hopkins report. The Johns Hopkins report has like 187,000, 188,000, something like that. And the difference between those is that the Johns Hopkins ones is still taking everybody. So like in Colorado here, a couple months ago, the head of the state health agency said that they're taking down, it took down about 25% of the deaths because they were people that died from other things, but they had COVID, so they called it a COVID death. So they took those down. So that's what the CDC is looking at. But the Johns Hopkins, that's the number that the news media puts out there. They're talking about that 188,000. That's with anybody and everybody that died and then had COVID as well. So hey Teresa, hey Amy, good to see you guys. So what we're looking at is 94% of the death certificates that the CDC had looked at through, this was through August 26th, they were looking at it wasn't just COVID that died from that. Only 6% of the death certificates said this person died from COVID. Everybody else had comorbidities, and we knew this. Even looking way back in Italy, looking way back in China, for months and months now, we knew Italy, it was 99% of the people that died with COVID had other comorbidities. In the United States, so far it's 94% have died with COVID, and when we're looking at that, so maybe 10,000 of these people that have died with COVID, they have had other comorbidities. 2.6 on average is what the research shows as well. Things like flu and pneumonia, things like high blood pressure, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. They even had talked about dementia. They talked about kidney failure, a lot of different things. Some of the interesting ones, 5% of the people that died with COVID, they also listed cancer as their cause of death on that as well. 9% had sepsis, which is going to be infection in the bloodstream. So if somebody has some other type of injury, wound, something like that, and they get sepsis, it's that infection in the bloodstream. So 9% have died with sepsis. 13% have died with a heart attack and COVID. So interesting, I haven't read anywhere that says COVID causes heart attacks. Yes, there's reports of blood clots and things like that, but 13% of the people died with COVID also had a heart attack. 16% died with high blood pressure. They had a hypertension disease, and so that could have been stroke, things like that, as well as COVID. The interesting one here, 3.1% was either intentional or unintentional injury or poisoning. So that's interesting that 3.1% of the people out of that 167,000 died with intentional or unintentional injury or poisoning. So that's pretty interesting, and they had COVID, and so that was that with COVID. 16% had diabetes. 36% had flu or pneumonia. Other interesting statistics, 50% of the people of that 167,000 were either Hispanic or Black. So pretty interesting on those stats. And that's why they're looking at so much of this Miranda that is working on one of the vaccines that they're trying to fast track. In the first trial, they only had about 3% of the people were non-Caucasian, non-white. They were African American, Hispanic, things like that. When we know that 50% of the people dying are either Hispanic or black, when it's a lot less percentage of that. 80% of the people that have died of that 167,000 were 65 plus. So pretty interesting. You're going to see a lot more of this. People are going to be saying, "Oh, well, that doesn't say that those people, could have lived another 10 years." Or some people are going to say, "Well, they were going to die anyways." Regardless, it was interesting to see that there was a lot of other comorbidities. So, what can you do today for these? Well, when we start looking at diabetes, when we start looking at high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease and all these different conditions, these are all fixable. These are all reversible, treatable. We reverse diabetes in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. We can drop blood pressure because blood pressure is usually a high triglyceride issue, which is actually a blood sugar issue. We can reverse that in a matter of a month or two as well. Almost all of these comorbidities that we're looking at with COVID-19 are reversible. So if 94% of the people that have died had comorbidities, and let's say 80% of those comorbidities are preventable and reversible, then we're doing most of this to ourselves. And it's not a guilt trip. People are like, "Oh, you're just guilting people for being sick." It's like, no, we're talking about the United States has the highest numbers of deaths, the worst statistics in the world, because we are worst in almost every single one of these categories. And so there are things you can do. You can stabilize your blood sugar. You can find out what you should and should not be eating. You can run your blood work and look at all the different systems that are out of balance. Reverse your fatty liver, get rid of your autoimmune condition, do all these things that we know your body can actually change and heal and fix. So pretty amazing statistics. This is something we've known all along. Italy had 99% of their cases were actually comorbidities, were not just COVID. So 94%, not surprising, but a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's really not," or "it really is." But regardless, we know that at least on average, people have 2.6 other comorbidities 94% of the time if they get diagnosed as a COVID death. So what does that mean? You've got to take massive action today to get your health back, because it's not just about this virus, it's about the next virus, it's about the next bacteria, whatever else is coming your way. This virus is going to burn out, it's going to be gone within a year, it's going to be hardly even a blip on our radar, and yet there will be something else coming. So take action today, do the best you can, watch our videos, Facebook, YouTube, check out our webpage, fmcenters.com. We have tons of information out there for you guys. Take massive action, do everything you can for you and your loved ones to get your health back. And I always say, stay strong.